Like the opening scene is like the bokoblins like assaulting a village, and then pow, and then like they all look, and like one of the homies is just dead, and they're like, wait, like he didn't evaporate into evil juice, he just dead, like his body don't move, and then
there's no arrow in it.
He's just dead, and they're just like, oh my goodness. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the episode 0 of the Super Agile Bros podcast, where we talk about everything and nothing. Introducing myself, Bradston. I am, I guess you could say, the perennial, host of this thing. I guess I came up with the idea, so we'll call myself the host. Then we got Steve. Steve, say what's up.
What's up?
And then we got the boy, 3 Hams, aka Kyle, in the building.
What it do, y'all?
So, you know, it's about to be a party, man. I mean, one day we'll explain the story of how this all came together. But yeah, this is a podcast, and you're gonna love it. So today we're gonna be talking about just what it means to be a man. You know, the question I continue to ask myself all the time, and since I know Shoop, or AKA Steve, you know. He's always struggling with this question. I figured it'd be a good
Nobody
question.
will tell me, and I can't figure it out for myself.
Well, there's very simple guidelines. You must be swift as a roaring river.
Course.
What is it? Or was
coursing.
it?
Coursing.
Swift as a coursing river. I can't even remember the steps now.
Yeah, there's clearly. Are you a man, Kyle?
A dribbling river.
Do you know?
You must be
this tall.
Yeah.
You must have ball handles.
You know what's weird? Like, you know how games nowadays, like, have y'all noticed that like a lot of games, the protagonist of the game is like a woman now? Have y'all noticed that?
I have. Yeah, and a lot of people are saying that it's like pandering.
I have seen more games like that.
I like it though.
I think it's great. I don't mind at all.
No, three Yams. Kyle, you like it? Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, I don't know. Did y'all see the thing? Like, to me, it's like, I think it's cool because, you know, like, hey, like a female protagonist, let's make it work. And they got a lot to offer too. And like back in the day, all female protagonists look like Lara Croft with those,
triangular assets.
Polygons.
Polygonal assets. That is definitely a way to put it. But yeah, like I do kind of feel like it's a little pandering. It's kind of like making all your characters minorities. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like oh yeah, we got women. You know, we got black people. We got Asian people, Hispanic people.
Are you happy?
We're diverse.
I think about that game. I think it's Iconoclast that has mostly female characters. I mean, it looks really good.
Which one is that?
What is
Iconoclast? It's I don't know too much about it. It's been a while. It's on a wish list I have somewhere, but it's a game where you are a mechanic, and you're like I think it's like a party game. Or not. Let me rephrase that. You have a party. You develop a party as you play the game.
Mario Party.
But did you say Mario Kart?
Mario Party.
You said Mario Party. He's purposefully misunderstanding me.
Like,
as he is wont to do.
I mean, hey, you know what? Like, if Mario Kart was woke from the jump, if you think about it, Mario Kart has every type of character. It got women, it got men, it got Waluigis, it got ghosts, it got turtles. It's like we represent everybody here.
Everybody.
We got baby versions of people.
Baby,
you know, just
we got
in
metal
case.
folks.
We got metal peoples.
And the villager, he's like subhuman. I don't even know what he is.
We got Link, who's an elf. I guess Link is human. Elf?
Hylian?
I don't think that humans technically exist. I think they're Hylians. Yeah, is the closest thing we have to humans.
So are we supposed to assume that the world of Link is on another planet, or is it on Earth?
It feels like
sure
it kind of
it's another planet or another universe or whatever.
It kind of to me it follows the same rules as like Star Trek, where people are like human adjacent, but they're all different types. And there's really not anybody, unless you're like full blown beasts. You're not really you're not an animal, but you're like human enough.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Unlike Star Trek, there's no actual humans. Like I don't think I've ever seen a human in a Zelda game.
But they're all humanoids, like they're human-like.
Well, yeah, the race of Hylians is basically the humans of that world.
Wasn't the running guy? Wasn't he like thought to be from a different planet?
The running guy.
Yeah, from like Ocarina of Time or something. I don't know. He was like a hidden character who always wore a mask, and people took it off.
You talking about the mailman who always was running around?
Yeah.
There's a mailman in Wind Waker too.
Yeah,
Majora's Mask. Pretty much in all of them past, I guess,
because
time. Yeah,
I think it was like because he was brown, but he wasn't a what's the brown people called in that one?
The Sheikah?
No, what was
the
Ganon?
Gerudo? The Gerudo?
Yeah, Gerudo. Yeah, he was brown, but he wasn't a Gerudo.
Well, that's the thing though. Like, I mean, are we supposed to assume that the people in this universe can't get like there's not complexion variance?
There's not much.
You know what I'm saying? Like if I guess the Goron are Gorons, like they're just rock people, and then the Zora are fish people.
Their complexions are pretty diverse.
I think as far as the Hylians or the Helians or whatever, I think they all are supposed to have essentially the diversity that Japan has in terms of complexity or complexion.
That would make sense.
I mean, you definitely have some darker Hylians, but they're not.
But that's like
they're not darker.
But the Sheikah people are darker, right? Like they're normally more brown.
You mean the Gerudos or the?
No, the Sheikah.
The Sheikahs too.
Like the guardians of the royal people. You know,
but they're just Hylians. I guess it's like
Hylians.
a family thing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they're like Sheikah, so you're supposed to assume that they're like the serving class, right? Because they're a little bit browner, and then
and they wear like not robes, but like the loincloths. Like they act like ninjas, but you know what's going on.
Loincloths.
Yeah, they're like more like ninja-ish, feudal. You know what I'm saying? Like yeah,
they have those flowing things around their waist. At least like some of them do in Breath of the Wild. I don't know if that's a running thing. That's my reference, by the way.
But here's the thing. Okay, now that we're on race, the topic of race in the Hylian in the Zelda universe. Y'all remember in Ocarina of Time, I think it was Kakariko Village, the dudes who lived in that village were like chicken people. Remember? Like the Kakariko Village?
I'm going to be honest. I didn't play Ocarina of Time.
Okay, now...
Is that that's the guy who plays the accordion?
No. The people who built the village. Remember, like, you came there when you were a kid, and they were, like, building the town.
And they were
chickens. And they were, like, running around, and they kind of had a, how do you describe it?
I mean, I know they had some people.
They had some flow in how they walked. You know what I'm talking about? Like, those dudes who their arms kind of, like...
They were graceful.
Yeah, they're very graceful, and they, like, ran around, and they were, like, doing construction.
Vaguely. But, yeah.
Yeah, like, those dudes... are like Hylians, but they're very different from the Hylians in like Hyrule Castle. Now, okay,
maybe it's like different classes of people too.
So here's a question. We kind of glossed over it. Are the Gerudo the same as Hylians, or like just like an offshoot, or are they a separate race?
I feel
in the world of Zelda.
I feel like since they were like distinctly named Gerudo, I think that they're indicating that something is very different about them.
But I mean, are we assuming like we're in the world, and somebody can be an American, they can be a Jamaican, they can be a Puerto Rican, but they're all humans, right? So are they all sharing the same ancestry? To answer your question, Shoop, this is my personal opinion. I think the Gerudos are similar to a completely different like biological family than Hylians, because if you think about it, like you got you got the Gorons, right? They're rock people. They grew in the mountains. They're clearly very different than a Hylian, right? Then you got the Zoras. They're fish people. They grew up in the water, and they're clearly very different from Hylians. And then the Gerudos, they grew up in the desert, but the main feature of their race or their culture is they're all women.
Oh yeah,
like there's no men, and Ganondorf was like a once in 1,000 year like
birth.
Where he
right?
come from though?
I mean, propagation in Gerudos is a whole nother.
Yeah, I was about to say, where did any of them come from?
I got questions now.
Are they just stealing men?
I mean, but we're assuming that they work off the same biological way that we propagate, right? Like,
sure.
I mean,
like maybe they're asexual.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to also be careful because it isn't just biology we have to consider, but this is a very magical universe with lots of curses and
fairies.
Like to me, it could very easily be that they're just Hylians that have fallen under some sort of generational curse. Or I say curse, but it doesn't have to be like a negative thing. It could just be some magical
binding
DNA that they own. Yeah, a binding. Sure. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's interesting. I mean, true. They could be just purely, I mean, or they could just operate on a completely different, like they just birth eggs. You know, maybe you're born an adult, you know, like you don't see many children.
I think
we don't know if the Highlands are mammals.
The Gerudo princess was young in
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Wasn't she?
That's true. She's a child. What's her name?
There was a child.
Riju or whatever.
Yeah.
I do not recall her name.
So what's interesting is that I've been playing Hyrule Warriors with my wife, Shailene.
Surprisingly good, right?
It's incredibly great. Like they've, I have both the Wii U version, Hyrule Warriors, and the Breath of the Wild version, right? And the Breath of the Wild version, I haven't finished Breath of the Wild. I know, shame on me.
Shame.
That's a whole nother discussion we can have. But
I'm gonna drop.
They introduced a lot of characters that I hadn't met because I never finished, and but it's interesting because it adds a lot of like it goes back to this weird thing about the Zelda world of all these different timelines, because Hyrule Warriors is a different world, like it's splintered off, and in Hyrule Warriors, they don't all get killed in their respective beast, if that makes sense.
Wait, you're talking about the Breath of the Wild version?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not part of the same continuity?
It's a different world. So I pretty much confirmed it because they say on the screens, like the loading screens. So first of all, the premise is that this weird robot travels through time and gives some information to Zelda, right? And because he gave information to Zelda, she was able to determine that certain things were going to happen and stop the different champions from being trapped within their particular beasts. And you save them in this game. So in each situation, you see how they were about to get killed. And then one of the champions from the future, like Riju or Teba and all those, they come through a dimensional portal and help you to fight to save them. And then they don't die.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I had no idea that went that deep. I thought it was just a cut and dry, here's what happened.
Before.
It's very sad. Sorry to see it.
I was under the impression it was like a prequel of sorts, like showing the great 100-year war or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Not of sorts, just a prequel. Straight up.
Yeah. They went straight up like, let's make a new timeline. Like let's like they literally brought it all back. Like it all technically.
Because Legend of Zelda needs more branches in the timeline.
It needs more timeline. So now it's a whole new timeline. I don't know. First of all, I don't know where Breath of the Wild falls within the Zelda timeline in general, but now
I think it's near the end. It's got to be one of the last games in the timeline. There are people who have like developed timelines, and I've watched videos, and if I remember correctly, Breath of the Wild is near the end, but they're not sure.
So Breath of the Wild 2, or I guess that's the working title. You think that's going to be a continuation, or will it be another?
That's an
I can't imagine they're going to continue this branched timeline from Hyrule Warriors. I'm assuming it's a direct continuation of Breath of the Wild.
Okay. So okay, for anybody who happened to be listening to this this episode, I'm about to say spoiler alert because I'm going to ask you guys. So what happened at the end of the Breath of the Wild? Like, what was the conclusion of the game, like, story-wise?
You can't say spoiler alert after spoiling.
I didn't spoil it.
Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, you spoiled the other game pretty hard.
But Hyrule Warriors. Okay, first of all, the story is like literally the part that you like. Man, can we just skip this? like it's fair. Interesting because it's Zelda, and I like Zelda, but like it's not. It's really campy. It's like Soul Calibur level, like storyline. Like
that's rough.
Like that Yoda found a portal to go into the Soul Calibur world. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like come on. Like,
but that's kind of how the what is it?
That's fair.
The Dynasty Warriors games, weren't they all kind of didn't they have a flavor like that?
Yeah, well, a lot of them have.
Well, I mean, they're the same game story wise every single game. They just insert random characters like in random places that don't really make sense, but they're like unashamed. They don't care. They don't care.
It's moving.
That's
copies.
The fun part. Hey, man, it's the fun part of it.
So they're pretty much pulling the NBA 2K out here.
Like, you know what? Like, who cares? Like, let's just make this work. This is the game. Like, it's fun. You like hacking and slashing. So back to my original question.
Your question.
What happens at the end of Breath of the Wild?
May I?
Go for it.
May I answer? Okay. So, what we know at the beginning of Breath of the Wild is that Ganon, or Calamity Ganon, which for most intents and purposes is Ganon, but I guess technically it's supposed to be his own entity, or like I don't know, like the boiled down version of Ganon, the evil. Anyway.
Got you.
He popped up. He took over all of the Guardians. He took over the Divine Beasts, killed a bunch of folks, essentially destroyed Hyrule and won. But at the last moment, Zelda was able to fight him and contain him within the castle.
Okay.
And she's been trapped there, somehow alive ever since then. Meanwhile, you were on the edge of death trying to protect her, being a boss. And her last mission to like one of the Sheikah leaders was take him to this fancy bathtub where he'll be resurrected later. So then you play the game, and at the end of the game, if you've defeated, near the end of the game, you show up at the castle, and you storm the castle, and depending on how many of the divine beasts you've defeated, you have to fight those blights in the castle. If you've defeated all of them, then you don't have to fight them again. And then you face Calamity Ganon. He pops up. He's in the middle of trying to, I guess, form a new body, so he's all gross looking. And you fight him, and again, depending on how many divine beasts you have defeated or awakened or whatever, they fire on him from where you left them. And so he loses huge chunks of health, depending on how much. And then you fight him, and you beat him. And I forget exactly how, but you end up outside, and he's kind of like in a, this is my final form mode. He's a giant, you could almost say like a divine beast, but he's just this giant monster, pig monster. Mm-hmm. And Zelda is awake, and she gives you the ability to shoot light arrows.
Of course. And
you shoot light arrows at this guy.
Weak points.
And then she banishes it, or she doesn't banish him. It seems like she kills him outright, like destroys the Calamity. Which is abnormal because in most Zelda games you only trap him or banish him or something.
Seal him or something, yeah.
Yeah, seal him, exactly. So it seems like it's finished. Like there's no more Ganon after this. And then I don't remember what happens after that. Do you remember, Kyle?
I don't remember anything significant happening after that.
I think it feels like it's just a kind of like, and the world is open to us now kind of ending.
Yeah.
Because you can't play after that. Like, if you keep playing the game, it'll be before you fight Ganon. It doesn't continue after you fight Ganon.
Right, your previous save.
But aren't we? I mean, there's plenty of Zelda games where Ganon is not the final boss, but he's kind of like maybe influencing a particular character to do something. Like, have you ever played Minish Cap?
No, but I
Yeah.
played Twilight Princess, and that was the case there.
Yeah, so like in Minish Cap, it's a very different story, but similar. You know, it's always Ganon in the end. So here's the thing, though. Like, if they're doing a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, like, what are the odds that Ganon is completely destroyed? And once again, like, isn't this whole Zelda universe based on like basically reincarnation of the same three entities, the hero, the princess, and the evil, over and over and over and over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask you this: have you seen any of the trailers for the sequel?
I've seen the trailer, but I feel like have amnesia on. Like, it just
Very
looked like
purple.
it just looked like he was doing stuff like, oh, I'm doing a thing and I'm doing another thing and the thing is happening. Like, it didn't feel like I was getting anything other than like, oh, you can do more stuff. Like, cool. It's Breath of the Wild with more stuff. Like,
well, the first trailer showed that underground somewhere, Link and Zelda find what looks like a mummified Ganon corpse, and it comes to life. And so, I mean, I think the assumption is supposed to be this is going to be the enemy. And potentially this is, you know, I said that Calamity Ganon is kind of a separate entity. Like, it's the stripped down evil from Ganon. Like, that could potentially have been just evil exuding from this corpse that's been underground for hundreds of years.
The expression of Ganon.
Yes. So she killed that expression, but the man himself is still somehow alive under the castle or underground, wherever.
I mean, you would know that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is interesting that they called the entity Calamity Ganon. They didn't call it Ganondorf or the Beast. Like, it's always at the end of a Zelda game, spoiler alert, you fight Ganon, but it's always like his Ganon beast form, like the hog pig, right?
Yeah, it's different.
So yeah, man. I mean, maybe that was the conceit, right? That it was.
I think they made a point. The reason they made that point was that this isn't an intelligent enemy. He's like in some of the other games where you fight kind of just a rage monster. He's like that, and not, you know, not the Dark King coming from the desert to rule. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense because in other games he's behind the scenes, but it takes him a while to like revive in his true form. So, and like there's times where Ganon wins, right? There's some timelines where Ganon wins, and he's like he wreaks havoc. Like, so is it interesting? Like, is it how it works that like sometimes Ganon wins and you have to wait for the cycle to reset, and then like that's basically what happened.
Yeah, that's kind of Breath of the Wild's premise, is that he took over the land and they waited for Link to come back.
Yeah, but that was the original Link, right?
It's the same guy.
So the Triforce of Power didn't move to another person.
Courage.
Courage.
Yeah, true.
Power is Ganondorf. But yeah, so I've always had this idea of what if they made a Zelda where, and this is where I thought they were going to go with not Majora's Mask.
Ocarina of Time?
Not Ocarina of Time. Goodness, there's so many. I'm on a boat.
Wind Waker.
Wind Waker, man. I love that game. But
I'm on a boat.
Hey, man.
That's all you need to say.
Descriptive.
It works.
I thought he wasn't the hero of time. I thought that he was.
He's not.
You know? Like, he's not the hero of time, but he gets the expression of the power. I mean, of the courage, eventually, right?
Yeah. The people who I think the official title for him is the Hero of the Winds.
Oh, I guess it's not the hero of time because it's just the hero, and each of the heroes just are a different expression, like the hero of time, the hero. But he was the hero, and he had courage, right? Like, but what if there's a game where literally you play as the person who's not the hero at all, right? Like. Like, you are doing all these things, you're fighting all these people, you're doing all this stuff, but you find out that, like, you can't beat Ganon. Like, you get to the end or the middle or whatever, and you can't beat Ganon. And then you're revealed that you're not the hero, and it's your job to, like, save the hero. Like, so it's kind of like a Federation
Force kind of thing.
Yeah, like,
you're not the main character.
You're not the Jedi, you know? You're Han Solo. You're
Oh, what a bummer.
Yeah. So you're good.
That'd be interesting. What I'm curious what the gameplay would be like. It would just be the same, but you're a different person. But I'm also curious how you think that story would go. Like, would your character kind of bow out at some point, and then you become the hero of whatever?
That's like you give up control of the character you were playing as to then play as the hero.
Yeah, that feels terrible.
Yeah,
just as I think about it.
But that's the conceit, right? I think number one, you wouldn't use swords, right? Like you would be somebody who fought, like maybe you were physical hand to hand, or you use staffs, or you use bow and arrow, a gun. You just had a pistol,
a lightning gun.
I am the hero of guns. Bah! Blah!
I got everybody's weakness right here in my hand.
Ganondorf, he's like, wow, you killed Ganondorf. Like, he's dead. Like,
all these bokoblins like holding their shields in certain ways, and you need to shoot.
Like the opening scene is like the bokoblins like assaulting a village, and then pow. And then, like, they all look, and like one of the homies is just dead, and they're like, "Wait, like he didn't evaporate into evil juice. He just dead. Like his body don't move, and then
there's no arrow in it.
He's just dead." And they're just like, "Oh my goodness,
it's different.
Like, this is a different game." And they're like, and they like really fight you now. Like before they're kind of like dumb, like, but they're really fighting for their life. And you go, "Bow, bow," and you bow. That would be a hot game.
You're like Ash from Evil Dead. This is my boomstick.
But honestly, I think the gameplay would be he would have a different weapon. He'd get to the Master Sword. He can't remove it, right? That's the moment he finds out he's not the hero. Well, you don't say he's the hero. You just say the person guiding him is like, oh, like for some reason you're unable to
wield it.
Maybe you need to unlock your Triforce of Courage, right? Then he's like, but you should be able to still be able to defeat the evil without the evil's bane or whatever. You go fight Ganon or Ganondorf and you lose. Like, you almost die. And then, like...
Question.
Okay, continue. Yeah.
That encounter. Is that one of those fights where you actually win, but then lose in the cutscene?
No.
Yes. I hate where you have to actually lose in the fight. Like, you can't win the fight. Like, you're playing in the game. So you keep losing. So you just keep trying. Or you, like, oh, his health bar is like 9 million, but you're just gonna gimp him because you're like, I can't lose this fight. And then like you spend an hour trying to gimp him, and then you realize, oh, I can't win this fight. Like, I prefer winning. He evades and then beats you. Like he retreats. Really? Like, I prefer that. Like,
I feel like both of those. I don't know the solution necessarily, but I feel like both of those feel terrible every time.
Yeah, I agree.
But really, how is it not more terrible to think that you should win this scenario? So like when you lose it, you're like, oh, I restart the game, right? Like you just do it. Like maybe you're just that type of person and you just keep trying to fight,
Well, maybe
to me,
you had to have a cutscene that starts so fast after losing that nobody would mistake it for, oh no, I'm dead, I have to start over.
Well, to me, when a boss has like an impenetrable defense or a health bar that'll take, days to whittle down, I feel like that's just a nod that I'm supposed to lose. And I don't think that's good. But I prefer that over feeling like I can win the fight, winning the fight, and then the story telling me that I lost because I just saw myself win.
Well, okay. Here's a concession. What if you don't defeat the boss? You complete an objective, right? Like, knock down all these towers to fill the room with water so you can defeat Ganondorf because you don't have the evil's bane, right? So you do all of this and you think that he's now primed to be killed. Then it cuts to a cutscene and you lose.
That's fine.
That would be cool.
Because I think you solved the issue. Was the objective when you're fighting a 1v1 is to win that fight. And so if after you win the fight, or if the fight is just wildly unfair, then that objective isn't satisfying.
I'll say this. What if we have a normal health bar, but the cutscene of you losing starts when you get the boss to some health? It's not 0, so you don't think that you've won. But you're doing stuff. Yeah, you're not even you're about to win. Maybe like half or a third or 2/3, right? And at some point, he just turns the table on you in a cutscene.
I think that's fine, because a lot of times they take it from the point where, especially like if it's you're fighting the final boss, like the first boss of the game, then it's like once you get him down to a certain amount of health, he's like, "Oh, I've just been toying with you this whole time," and then he kills you in the cutscene. So it makes sense then.
Yeah, because I've been playing Hades, and one thing I've noticed is that death doesn't mean much, right? Because when characters in this game die, they just respawn in Hades in the underworld. But canonically, there are some fights where you kill the person you're fighting, and there are some fights where you don't. And it's very consistent. Like, oh, this is a person who's not supposed to, even in this temporary sense, die. Like, you just win the fight. And so there's plenty of times where, like, I've won a fight with health still on the health bar, or a fight went to a second phase with health still on the health bar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, that's interesting, because to me, I actually dislike in games when you, like, for example, in some of the fights that you do in this Breath of the Wild Hyrule Warriors game, you fight a main character, an enemy, but they're not ready. This is not the point where they lose in the game, right? So they retreat, right? And I hate that. Like, I'm just like don't retreat. Like, just don't fight. Like, I get it. You would retreat, but I'm like, hey, I'm killing all your homeboys. Like, you don't have anywhere to retreat to. You know, like, like, where are you supposed to go? Like, I don't know. I just prefer, like, the fight that I have with you to either be the final fight, or I think I kill you, but somehow you survive. You know, like
really,
like I prefer, like, me defeating you. So, like, completely. I don't like, for some reason, I just don't like the idea of, like, aha, boosh, throw down a puff of smoke. You've bested me this time, but next time I'll be more prepared. You know,
Speed racer.
Not that I don't agree with you, but doesn't that feel more like a game, or like a story issue rather than a gameplay issue? Agreed.
But that's kind of the point to me. Like, it's the same. It's the same to me.
I think the Spider-Man games handled this really well, because one thing they use to their advantage is set pieces. Like, if you're going to have a fight with somebody and they want it to be in phases, then they never make it to where you're disengaged by watching them run away. It's like, so if they're going to run away, it's because you've been beating the tar out of them and they're trying to escape, but you're given control to chase them down. And, you know, it's up to you how far they get, you know, in a lot of cases. Or in other times, a building will be falling and you have to save people, and so then they get away. But it's never just like Brad was saying, where it's some cheap maneuver where now the game decides they're leaving.
Mm-hmm. So retreating seems like a bad thing, but I mean, do we still agree that having a boss beat you instead of you beat him is sometimes okay, if the gameplay is okay?
I think if the boss beats you quickly and summarily, like, I think if you can put up a fight in any way or form, it can be interpreted that you could win that fight, right?
That's fair.
Like, oh, maybe there's an alternate ending where if I beat them, like, for example, I don't know if you've ever played Metal Gear Solid, but in Metal Gear Solid, there's a point where Snake gets captured, right? And he's in this room where he's getting tortured. And you, in order to survive, you have to, like, tap, like, circle and X really fast, right? Like, you know, old school games, like, you know, that stuff. So if you do well enough in that scene, you get a different ending of the game. Like, it completely changes your ending depending on how you perform in that moment, right? So in my mind, I you know, like, I knew this prior to the first time I played it, or like I ran into something that somebody told me, and I was like, there's no way that I'm about to get the second option, which is I survive, but I'm in worse off and I get a worse ending, you know? Right. Like, the fact that they gave me an option made me frustrated versus just like, I die or I don't die. I get it. Different endings. That's cool. More, you know, gameplay time, you know, like secrets. Back in the day, that's what it was. But I think in a game where, like, I'm playing something where it's an RPG, it's an action game, whatever, what have you. Like, if I'm fighting a person, if this person's stronger than me, like, I like the games where I go into the fight, they hit me once and I die. Like, oh, okay, cool. Like, there's no way I'm winning this fight in a million years. Like, it's as simple as that. And RPGs have done that in the past. Like, you start the fight and the guy does one move, does 999,000 damage. Right. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, I was never going to win this fight. But don't give me a chance.
You see, I don't like that feeling. I like, even if I know I'm supposed to lose, I like to feel like it happened organically. You know, like, I don't want it to just be like, oh, don't bother trying to fight this guy because you know you're supposed to lose. Like, I still want to try. Maybe that's just... Yeah, I think... Maybe that's like a really hard thing to pin down, though.
I definitely think it's a hard balance to find because, if you don't balance it well enough and, you know, you feel like you have a fighting chance, then it's easy to get into what Brad was saying where you feel like you can win the fight. So to find that place of powerlessness, but also, like, I think it's a really tough spot because you, like, do you allow the player to hit them to do any damage?
I think I think it's a difficult place, but I think like it comes back to what we've been kind of describing, which is like narrative and gameplay have to kind of come together where like you can't like, okay, in one scenario, you're not, this guy, the final boss is so much stronger than you at the beginning of the game or whatever that she should mollywop you, right? Mm-hmm. Like if I go up in a fight against Mike Tyson, it doesn't matter. Mike Tyson is going to hit me once. And the fight is over. Like, I can go around sticking moves, throw my jabs, and blah, blah, blah. But, like, Mike Tyson hits me, it's over, right? Yeah. So that's cool. Like, cool, you're good at evading. That's fair. Oh, sorry, my computer just randomly turned on. But, yeah, that's fair. You can fight to your heart's content, but you're going to die. I just don't think, you know, but that's a narrative decision, right? This character is so much more powerful than you that you don't have a chance. Mm-hmm. I can understand what you're saying, Steve, if you're saying like this character is within some realm of possibility for you to defeat. So, okay, you can fight him a little bit, but then it gets confusing because, you know what I'm saying?
I suppose, yeah. Here's, and you're also saying that you want losing to be a definite failure state in the game. Like, you don't want it to be like, well, you lost and now the game continues with that loss in mind.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're describing in Metal Gear is you lost that mini game, but the game goes on and you get a worse ending because of it.
Your enemies will remember that.
Yeah, and I think to me that's the breaking of the immersion. The moment that I have to go online and search, can I win this fight? Right? Like, to me, I've just left the game and it's just like, it's doing the opposite of what I want it to do, which is to take me to another world, right? Like, it's now just become like not a job, but something that I have to like,
optimize.
You know, exactly. And I think games do really well when, and I hate that because say I search, can I kill this boss? And then I see something that I don't want to see, you know, like from much further along in the game. Then
so that's it's really interesting. It's really interesting that that's the problem we have, because in my mind, if I was trying to develop, design this game, I don't expect or want people to ever go online to optimize. Like, I want people to play the game as they play it and to experience it as they experience it. But what you're bringing up is that even me or whoever's developing this game, like, you can't control how people are going to want to, cheat the system. They're going to look up, can I beat this? Like, in my mind, if I'm playing that game and I do something and then there's a bad outcome, I'll just think, oh, that's just what's supposed to happen. Maybe I'll try to like save scum and try to do better, but I'm not going to go outside looking for clarification. Like, was I supposed to do something different? But I guess you would. And I guess a lot of people would.
Yeah. And I think that's just from what we've been taught through gaming, right? Like, I don't know, Kyle, like, but you've probably had that experience, like, like you play a game and it's the game, you're not playing a game in a vacuum, right? Like, you're playing other games around it. And if the industry standard is that, like, oh, like, we're making games that have diverting paths and different endings and, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're in that moment and you see a thing that could possibly be a diverting path, it's like in, what's those games? Telltale games. Like, You make a decision, and who lives, who dies. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I think in those games, more than others, we kind of expect there to be that.
Yeah, they are very narrative driven.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you find those elements though in games where I guess you don't expect it, is jarring.
So, for example, maybe this is a weird example, but Metroid Prime games, you get a better ending. I assume all the Metroid games, but at least the ones I've played, you get a better ending, or you get like a secret ending at the end if you collect enough, like a high enough percentage of all of the collectibles in the game, or if you beat it fast enough. And I'm like, at least the first time I play a game like that, I'm not looking online like, what's the time I have to be under? What percentage do I have to get? I'm just going to play the game the way I want. And, I like to have a high percentage. So I'm going to go and try to find every little thing. But I'm not going to break my back if I can't find the last 2%. And then I beat the game and I see what I see. And then afterwards, I'm like, cool, what did I miss? Is it worth me playing again and trying to get that 100%?
Right.
But
Well,
I don't do that till after.
I think that goes to show it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that just goes to show it's a giant influence that the online community has had in gaming. Just because like games that were never meant to be competitive are because of things like speedruns. And so that would influence there being an achievement centered around, well, how fast did you do it? Or the game even, keeping track of that.
Well, I have some alternative facts.
Get that crap out of here.
I'm gonna say this in the sense that I get what you're getting at, Steve, but in this particular case, which is Metroid, there is some context that's really important to understand why that choice, why they did that, is actually expected. And if you're familiar with the Metroid series, you would be okay with it. And even fundamentally, when you play it, you'd come off with that expectation. Because in the original Metroid, if you beat the game at a certain speed, you got to see Samus without her helmet on. And it was a big thing. And this is before the internet, right? So it was a secret, like, oh my goodness, Samus is a woman. And the only way you would know that is if you beat the game under a certain period of time. So it had nothing to do with, speed running, like the community didn't exist or anything. It was literally a secret. So in many ways, the legacy that is Metroid created that type of mentality. Beat at a certain speed and certain completion rate, you get a different ending. So that's really an homage to the original game, not necessarily a reflection of what the gaming culture was at the time. But I understand what you're saying. But in this particular situation, I think that development decision was made because of the legacy of Metroid, if that makes sense.
Right. I guess I wasn't trying to say anything about the development decisions. I was just pointing out how I go about, games like that, where there's something I could be trying to optimize, but I choose not to peak.
Well, I would say that it would fall into the same category as like other Easter eggs. I mean, it wasn't like the first Easter egg by any means.
Yeah.
So, if that's an Easter egg, is that Metal Gear ending an Easter egg as well? Would you say it is?
I would say that in context of the time, I think it was. But similar to you, how your feeling about it is different than what the implementation was at the time, right? Like the developers. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd have to look a little bit more into if there's any legacy to that. But also, like, Metal Gear was doing a lot of things. It was subverting a lot of standards. I mean, the whole, like, what's that fight with
Psycho Mantis?
Psycho Mantis.
I can read your mind. Like, that's, to me,
foolishness.
The fact, I wish that I could have experienced it when it was happening. Like, that would have been wild, Like, that I have to think outside of the box like that,
I, for one, will admit before anyone that I wouldn't have never in my entire life figured that out on my own.
Yeah.
Figured out what exactly, like how he was doing it or how to beat him?
How to beat him. Plug in the controller in the port too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, to be fair, like, from what I recall, like, he actually kind of hints at it. Like, you would figure it out if you played it long enough, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like
if you lost long
it's
enough.
not completely like, I might be wrong on this, but I recall him saying, like saying some quips that would make you think, oh, maybe I should try that,
Okay, that's cool then.
That's really
what
cool.
I recall. But like that's why I almost called him Koji Kondo. That's why what's his name? I'm now blanked on his name.
Kojima.
Yes, thank you. Kojima is such a genius. Like he just really did cool things that like now seem almost standard, but like were completely mind blowing.
And he's still pioneering things.
What did he do recently?
Death Stranding
Yeah,
is pretty.
the Stranding.
I mean, the gameplay itself is pretty weird, but the idea of a game that is supposed to be non-violent in a violent world, and I don't know, when the little pieces don't seem innovative, but then when you put them together, it's people make fun of him for saying it's like, oh, it's the first Strand type game, but it really feels like a different kind of game.
Interesting.
I haven't played it myself, but it's I mean, it's palpable that it's struck a unique chord. Like it hasn't. Like you can usually categorize games, and people have been having a hard time categorizing it. And so, just to me, from an industry standard level, that means that he did something radically different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I wonder if like that's always been his like goal, like to subvert the norms, or if that's just fundamentally just who he is. Like he's always thinking on another. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it intentional, or is that just an expression of who he is?
I feel like if you listen to the dialogue in any of his games, you kind of get the feeling that it's got to be just how he thinks. I don't know if he plans that far ahead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he just found a medium that lets him express it in an interactive way.
Did you see his explanation of like the emergent multiplayer or whatever it's called?
No.
Mm-mm.
So he was going on. He's talking about how. So in the game, you get likes from NPCs for doing deliveries and stuff, and a lot of your the progress you make is based on how many likes you get, which is based on how well you do. But you can also when you build structures in the game to help yourself, or when you donate materials to to build huge structures that you wouldn't necessarily be able to build by yourself, that's actually shared online. So all the people, not all the people, but I guess some subset of the player base is online with you, kind of. You never see anybody in the game, but your structures show up in other people's games and vice versa. And you share the donations that help build these huge roads that make the game a lot faster. And so there's a kind of community aspect to it. Like, you kind of pretend in the lore there's other people out there who are making these deliveries and are doing this stuff with you, and you're and it fits in perfectly with the narrative, which is all about a divided country. Everyone's living in bunkers by themselves, and everyone's afraid to be whole again. And you're literally stitching, like, you're going around the world basically connecting everyone's internet. It's like you're stitching the country back together, and it fits in perfectly with this idea that you're building community with other players. And he's talking about how, like, you can like other people's structures. So I'll log into the game and I'll just get like 3 or 4 notifications of people liking a ladder that I left somewhere that helped them, it helped them scale a cliff. And they were like, thanks, I appreciate that. And they liked it. And I heard about it later. And it doesn't mean anything. It just feels nice.
So, and those things last forever?
The ladders? No. I mean, even my stuff, well, I'll say, like I said, as a subset of the players. So it isn't like every player in the world is littering my game with their structures. But there's also a built-in, basically things fall apart over time just because of in-game. The time fall makes things degrade, so it kind of naturally works out that well.
Okay, they have
that way.
No, I mean, that's really cool. It kind of reminds me of, I've never played a Dark Souls game directly.
Yes, yes.
But it does remind, like when people told me about how people would leave signs or whatever, yeah, like that kind of emergent community aspect of the game Like that's really, really cool. Kojima's on another level, son.
Yeah. I will say in Dark Souls, I always hear about people leaving troll messages like, "Oh, just jump," and then you jump and there's nothing there and you die.
Yeah,
but in this game, in Death Stranding, you can't do that. There's only leaving likes and building stuff for people. The worst you can do is, leave a ladder somewhere that's not helpful.
So you can't really grief people, like you
can't really, exactly.
You know what's interesting, like about emergent multiplayer, and I know that, like, of course, like Kojima intended for people to do this, right? Like to have an emergent thing, and in Dark Souls, they kind of were like, "Oh, we're gonna leave it this way." One of the most interesting experiences I think I've had in multiplayer, like, and I go back to it every once in a while, is in Journey.
Yeah, never played it.
Like,
bro, you got to
do it. You got to do it, and the reason I did it was accidental. I didn't mean to play multiplayer, like online, but like, it's so strange. Because Journey, the whole conceit is that you're by yourself and you're not speaking English. You're speaking some weird, like, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, like making noises. And like, like, it's very strange. Like, you have to play it. But when you have another person, and it could be anybody in the world, right? Like, there's no, like, I can connect with a friend, Like, it's literally a random person that you'll never, ever interact with again. Like, that you'll never know who they are. And it's this weird thing. It's completely an anonymous experience. But like, the engagement you have with this other person who could be on the other side of the world, who could literally be next door, and y'all are like speaking to each other and trying to like accomplish tasks. Like, it's such a strange experience. Like and kind of helping each other, because you can play the game by yourself. You don't need another person, but like, you can assist each other to do things easier and get bonuses to make your scarf longer and stuff. It is such a like weird experience, like when another person with you, and then like at first, like, and then when you're with a person who's like super cooperative and helping you, like, you don't want to break that friendship. Like, you want to continue throughout the whole game with them. Like, it's very strange, but I'm not sure if it's the same person when I go from stage to stage. Like,
no way to know.
It almost,
because there's no indication.
There's no indication, and it feels like it's the same person sometimes. But there was a moment where I was playing, and it felt like I was playing with the same person, and I was waiting for them, and they joined me. And then I got to another stage, and it had to be a different person because their personality changed, which is such a weird thing to say. Like, they're not even speaking, but I could tell it was a different person. It was so
different.
Yeah, it was such a, like, how they cooperated with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I remember in my playthrough, I've only played that game through once. I considered playing it through again, but I have a hard time playing games again. I'll be honest. But I remember encountering people from like all different, like with different motives. Like, the first person or one of the people that I encountered wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. And then
he was playing by accident. He was like, I'm just playing single player online.
Yeah, so he was jumping gaps and finishing puzzles and just doing everything while I was just straggling behind. And eventually we got separated because he was just moving too quick. And then I met somebody who was about that life, and so they helped me with some stuff for a little bit. And it was on one of the longer sections, and it was so tragic. I don't want to spoil it for you, Steve, but so there's a lot of like platforming in the game, and when you get far enough in the game, it gets unforgiving, and yeah, like you'll fall and have to redo bits and pieces if you're not careful. But they do it in a way that makes it still engaging and fun to do, so it's not like grueling. But me and this person who was, they were with me for a good portion, we got up really high on this bridge, and we jumped across one gap, and he got careless and missed the second jump and fell so far. And I remember just standing there at the ledge watching him fall for a good 5 seconds and hit the ground. And then I waited because we built this bond. We were climbing up this thing together. So I waited. I was like, okay, no, he's going to make it back up here. It's going to take a while, but he's going to do it. And so I'm climbing. And he was rushing so hard because he knew I was up there. And so he was jumping, making the jumps, but he was being so careless because he just wanted to get back to me as fast as possible. And he kept missing jumps and getting put further and further back. And eventually I was like, I just got to move on.
I got to leave you behind.
That is tragic.
It really is an experience, man. Like it's
a journey.
It really is. Like I don't know how they did it. I don't even think they meant to make it evoke the feeling that it did in multiplayer. Playing by yourself is just play it, Shoop. Play it, Steve. It's worth your time. I think it's a gaming experience that every person who considers themselves to be a gamer should have. And I think you should experience it without knowing what it is. Just play it. Try your best to avoid any type of spoilers. But yeah, it was very special, And I think I think like it kind of makes me think about all the different multiplayer experiences I've had throughout my life. And like how there's certain experiences that you have that like stick with you, like playing multiplayer Halo or Apex, or I think I shared this with you guys before. But one time I wish I could have recorded it because it was so beautiful. I'm playing Apex on the PS4 and me and my teammates are playing. We're doing pretty decently. And one of our teammates gets killed, right? And he gets killed in kind of like a weird way and like it wasn't really his fault, but it just happened, right? So me and the other guy and he was better than us. Like he was kind of carrying us in a way. He's like a little bit better. And we find a point to respawn him. We bring him back in the game and he doesn't have any weapons. There's no weapons in this particular area. So I throw my secondary gun to him and all my bullets, right? So I give him my gun. Because normally in the game, people just leave you, right? They just abandon you. But to me, I'm always like, I want to be more kind. So I give him my guns, I give him my bullets, and he picks them up and he's like, thanks me, right? Like in the game. And the dude who's with me sees me do that. And I see him standing there and like watching this interaction. And the man literally gives his shield up.
What?
And he had like a high level shield. For those who don't know what Apex is, he had a high level shield and he gives it up completely. And I was like, whoa. Like, it was like this, like, and if you've ever played Apex, like, giving up your shield, especially to a random, is like huge. And he gave it up, and, like, it was like a beautiful moment. Like, I gave half of my inventory and my weapons and, like, stuff like that. And he gave his shield, his literal protection. And I was like, yo, like, we didn't win the game, but it was like, it felt transcendent. Like, we got into a fight, we won a fight. Even despite and then we lost eventually, but it felt like we won.
You banded together.
It was beautiful, versus other experiences.
That's cool. Yeah, other experience. I've seen some of those experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say Journey is one of those games that you desperately wish you could play for the first time one more time?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. I think I would put that on that list. Yeah.
What else would you put on that list?
Final Fantasy VII. I wish I could forget everything about it. Knew nothing about the culture and just played it the first time. For me, Xenogears, old game. These are like old games. Mass Effect, 1, 2, and 3. Just going through that experience the first time was like completely different than anything I'd ever played. It was such an experience. I think that's about it. Maybe, I don't know. What about y'all?
What about you, Kyle?
I'm still thinking. You go ahead.
Okay. I think there was a moment in Bastion, which do you guys care if I spoil one of the nice moments near the end of the game?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so in Bastion, essentially, to summarize most of the plot is you're a kid and you're going around the world after this apocalypse happened. It's called the Calamity, and it destroyed...
Calamity Ganon!
It destroyed what appears to be the whole world, but you find out later it's actually just your country that was destroyed. And your country, I think it was Ceylondia, is at war with this other country. And I forget the name of the other country. And so you find out that... Well, I'm not going to say all this stuff. Anyway, along the way, you collect some friends, and they are not your countrymen. They're from this other country, but you're just a kid, and it's the apocalypse, and who cares, right? You're buds. But then this guy gets mad at you, and he leaves, and he goes back to his country, which is actually not destroyed. So you, for reasons that I will share, you're basically you're infiltrating this country, and this is like the hardest part of the game. Like up to this point, you've basically been fighting monsters, but now you're fighting like armed soldiers, and it's a way different gameplay. Like they're definitely more deadly, and you're just making your way, and you're making a huge mess as you go. And at one point, you come into this square, kind of like a town square, and he's there. I think his name is Zolf. He's there, and he's getting beaten up by his countrymen. And I think the narrator tells you, like, oh yeah, they're mad at him because he basically brought you. He brought you to the country, and you've created such a mess, and you've destroyed so much, and they blame him. So they're kind of throwing him out. And so you're surrounded by people, and he's just on the ground. And at some point, you had picked up this like huge weapon, and it's nasty. Like it's basically just a giant like ram like pillar, and you can like one shot most enemies, and it's a shield as well. So you're kind of overpowered right now. But it's like a two-handed weapon. You dropped your other weapons to get rid of it, or sorry, to pick it up. And so the game offers you a choice. Like, what do you do? Do you just continue? Do you kill these folks and continue on to your mission, to your goal? Or do you put down your weapon and pick up Zolf instead and try to escape with him since he was your friend?
Wow.
And so I'll just tell you, if you guys don't mind, I put down the weapon and I picked up Zolf, and all the people, like, they're like lined up, and there's like archers and stuff. And one dude shoots at you and misses, and then the guy next to him like kicks him, and they basically all stand down and they watch you carry this guy like out.
What?
And they like completely change their attitude towards you because they're like, oh, this is a dude who's self-sacrificial, I guess. And you don't like destroy the country or anything, so it's not like you backstab them after that or anything. But that was such a huge moment for me because I'm like, I'm playing the game like, oh, cool, I can carry him out. I guess I wonder what's going to happen. I didn't expect, all these people to like basically applaud me. And the music goes with it, and the narrative. It was a huge emotional moment. I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it.
Man, what a payoff. Yeah.
There was a huge payoff. And it's a very simple game. There's not like 3D cutscenes or anything. There's hand-painted isometric characters,
That's what Super Giant. They're really good at narrative.
That's the first Super Giant game. Yeah, it was absurd.
So
my other one would be Prey, probably. Because Prey has a few good plot twists, but what really struck me about Prey was the way that it offers you choices that you can't help. You know how there's like a dichotomy. Or that's not a good way of putting it. There's like a split between you as the player and you as the character you're playing. And so like we talked about it earlier, like you're playing Snake and you kind of know like, all right, well, if I do really well here, like you're trying to do well because you want to get some goal, not because you're afraid of dying. Right? Because you're the character. You're not the character. You're a player. This game offers you choices that I think are almost impossible to not answer as if you are the character.
Oh, that's good. So very immersive.
It's immersive. It's like a moral thing. It's all about morality, and I've never seen a game that actually tests my morality, not the player, or sorry, not like
your avatars.
The morality. Yeah. Like I'm not doing this. I'm not making these choices to have a light or dark scale go one way or the other. Like I'm making these choices because I think that they're the best thing I could do. Not from an optimization standpoint, but from a moral standpoint. And I won't get into the choices, but the game is full of stuff like that. And now that I've played it, it's kind of spoiled for me. But I mean, that's something where I'm like, I wish I could do it again and experience those aha moments. It was great.
Yeah, no, that's cool. You should play. I don't know if you play Telltale games, but Telltale: The Walking Dead has a lot of it. There's a reason why Telltale became what it became because
Those games.
I thought it was because of The Walking Dead. I didn't realize the game was just that good.
Yeah, it's
kind of
The
both.
Walking Dead itself. It doesn't even. It's how they do it. So anyway, so Kyle, what was yours?
So, in my thinking, I had 3 come to mind for very different reasons. So the first one, Super Mario Odyssey, I thought was a really, I don't know, like that game was pure. Like that's the only way I can describe it. Is like I haven't had an experience like that in a very long time, and I haven't had one since where I just felt like, I don't know, everything just kind of fit so well, and the experience was just so seamless that I don't know. It was very relaxing, but it's not something that I could get back into once I've like finished the goals I had set out for myself from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Second is Assassin's Creed. So the very first one where you play as Altair.
I can dig that. Yeah, I can feel you.
Yeah, the world building in that game was phenomenal, and I don't know. If you haven't played like the first 3, like or 4, I guess the one where you end with Ezio when he's old, I think it's Assassin's Creed Revelations. But after that, it becomes just a cash grab, and they can recycle old ideas. But the story it's incredible. I'm not going to spoil it, but. Mm-hmm. Like you think you know what's gonna happen, and you think it's just I'm just an assassin, doing cool backflips and stabbing folks. But it's so much deeper in that, and you just get so invested.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so last game, shameless plug, that I've never been able to play for the first time would be Amber. Just because since we developed that game, I have no idea what it means to play it with no perspective, and I think that would be a gift. But only if I could turn it off for a moment, play through the game, and then retain the knowledge, but then realize that I created the game and then build from that.
Yeah, and
that's why you guys get me to play your games all the time.
and for those who don't know, Amber is basically a game that me and Kyle created a while back, and it's something like. I don't know. It's very special to us, and what we made. It was an adventure game. Check it out if you want to. Maybe I'll put it in the description or something somewhere. Check it out. But yeah, I can feel you on that. I sometimes feel that about like things that I make in general, games or media. I'm like, oh yeah, I wish I could experience it like how other people do. But okay, first of all, I didn't realize y'all were going to give you a reason why you want to experience things for the first time. So I want to give my reasons. So
go ahead.
Fair enough.
So mine is Final Fantasy VII for sure. And particularly it's because of the feeling that it engendered in me. Especially, I don't think I could experience it this way unless I was a child again, like in 6th grade, where like everything to me in the gaming world was like incredible. I remember seeing the cutscenes for Final Fantasy VII and Sephiroth and all this stuff, and it just was like, what is going on? 3D graphics, what is happening? Like, it was blowing my mind. And then the moment, I guess at this point it can't be a spoiler, but Aerith, and the moment with Sephiroth, I mean, honestly, like, I think I almost cried when I was a kid when Aerith, because like they really did such an incredible job of building Aerith and Cloud's connection. And then how like her heart and her spirit and, the importance of what she was doing at the moment, and like her being the last person of her particular race and culture and what it meant. And then for her to be killed the way that she was killed and how it happened,
that, man.
And then how they lowered her body into the water, man. The other one is Xenogears, and this is kind of a harder one. I'm not going to even get too deep into it. It's just because the game is so different than any other game that I'd ever experienced during that period of time. The story it told and the crazy, crazy plot twists. Like, there's nothing like it. Like, Xenogears is an RPG with a really cool and unique battle system that I don't think any other game has really ever tried to tackle. It was like a combo-based RPG turn-based system. It was so cool. And then the story and the plot and this deep psychological, like, it was like Evangelion levels, like, for those who are anime fans, like, of messing with your head and like just crazy. You couldn't do it. Like it's incredible. I want to go back and play it. That's like one of those games that I wish, I don't even remember all of it, but I just remember the feeling. And lastly, I said Mass Effect. And just because Mass Effect was just something different, like this game where I could choose everything, you know? And I particularly remember this moment where in Mass Effect 3, I think it was, where there was a certain character having a conversation with another character who had nothing to do with the game plot. And it was at this hospital that you were visiting another character at. And every time you go there, they would expand on this story a little bit more. And it was like you were overhearing the conversation. So every time I went to the hospital, I wanted to go and see if they were going to talk a little bit more about this story.
It's so good.
And it was just completely arbitrary. You never had to hear it. But I just happened to overhear it one time. And I was like, whoa, like, and I would go there every time and I would sit there and I'd listen to their conversation. And it was just really cool. Like, I mean, there's probably other games like that, but, yeah, those are super cool. So, well, I'm going to just go ahead and wrap up this conversation on that, man. Just hearing, like, you know, those kind of memories gives me chills and like makes me think about those moments and where I was when I was experiencing them. But, I mean, games are powerful, man. And just, yeah. I like this conversation reaffirms why I love games.
For sure. Because even though you'd want to go back and re-experience, you wouldn't want to trade the experiences that you have had.
Exactly. It's nothing like them.
That's real. Yeah.
It's nothing like them. So, yeah, thank you everybody for checking out this episode of the Super Agile Bros. You know, thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you very much for your time. You know. And yeah, look forward to many more conversations about whatever we decide to talk about.
Yeah, that went really well. That was a good first. I never talked to you in my life, so I think that could have went pretty well.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to. I mean, I guess I should have expected it to turn into something, but I didn't expect. Oh, did we stop our recordings?
No, I'm still recording.
No.
So yeah, appreciate y'all listening. Y'all take it easy. Peace.
Good night.